Hey guys, how's it going? Steve here in Global Comics. So it's been kind of a crazy month, obviously with holidays and everything going on. And I live in Florida, so we've had a hurricane recently, so it's been kind of slacking on this on the market reports. But got a pretty good one. There's been recently some of the best deals going down in foreign comics I've ever seen. Some of the luckiest buys in the last month. So we'll kind of go through these and just check them out. So we're starting here with French Canadian. This is Iron Man 55, first appearance of Thanos and Drax. We've got one copy or actually both of these copies look like they were pulled from a bind. One sold for about $40, the other one for $120 around there with shipping. Pulled from a bind, I'd say to $120 that's a little steep for this book, but the $30 book that was a good deal for sure. Someone got a good deal on that one. This is a nice looking copy of Tomb of Dracula 10, first appearance of Blade. This is the French Canadian edition as well. This one sold pretty high, $277. And I say high, that's just that's kind of like as it's been going lately. I know some of these I believe have sold for much more than this. I know the German copy of Tomb of Dracula 10 has had some crazy sales in the past. So for $300, I was actually thinking about buying this book because although to me it's kind of a higher price, these just don't come up very often for sale and normally not in that great a shape. I think it was a smart buy. I think this book will keep going up because these heritage French Canadian books are not very easy to track down, especially when they're complete and not pulled from a bind. Here's another one. This one sold for $351. This is Spider-Man 129, French Canadian edition. I think there was one in the last market report, and a couple guys said they thought it looked like it was pulled from a bind. It's just hard. These can be hard to tell. I guess some of them pull out pretty cleanly. Most of the ones I've seen have been like really ugly pull outs, but I guess some of the later issues do. You can maybe heat it up a little bit or do something to kind of get it out a little bit cleaner, because some of these are coming out clean, and some people were saying they look like even some in the heritage auction were actually pulled from a bind and they didn't get caught by CGC, which is slightly troubling. But yeah, $351. It's definitely a solid price for this one. This one was definitely pulled from a bind, so you can tell definitely that one was ripped out. Hulk 181, French Canadian, the kind of infamous blonde Wolverine cover, which is actually Wendigo. It's just a recolored interior panel. So for something that was pulled out of a bind, $129. I guess that's maybe just the going rate these days. I have one that's complete, but it's not in the best of shape. But I paid about $100 for it. But that was also like 4 or 5 years ago. So the market's definitely increased. So now the Comicorama pooled copies are selling for more for sure. So then we've got a non-pooled copy that sold for almost $500, Hulk 181, and then the Hulk 180 sold for $110. Both of these look to be in pretty nice condition, so those are probably some pretty smart buys if you get them pressed and send them off to CGC. I do believe that for whatever reason there does seem to be some pretty high grade French Canadian stuff out there. For even as rare as it seems to be, there's definitely a lot of high grade ones that have been already submitted, some in the 9.0 range. So just something to think about. If you get something that's 8.0, there's more than likely going to be, even though it's considered high grade for foreign comics, there's more than likely going to be some that are graded higher. This is the Spider-Man 129, the RGE Brazilian Digest size comic, sold for $95. Pretty big price drop. They were asking $175. And apparently there's bootlegs of this book going around, so just be careful. If you see one that's way too high grade and the green on the lettering in the title is like way too kind of dark, or it looks really dark, more than likely it could be a bootleg. So time to reach out to somebody who would be able to tell the difference. I thought this was a pretty cool old school Golden Age horror comic cover, $3.75, Brazilian Golden Age. Nice copy of Avengers 57 from Mexico. First appearance of Vision, sold for $150. So these are the originals from Colombia, I believe. Although this says, I don't know, some of these come from Colombia, some are from Mexico. I know they were reprinted in the 2000s, so there's different versions of these books. So I guess there's a Colombian print and Mexican print. But these sold for $300 a piece, and those are pretty solid sales there. But pretty awesome covers as well. And if it's like the one that I've had, which was actually the later printing of it, the interior stories have nothing to do with what's on the cover. Actually, when I flipped through it, the interior story for the Galactus one was basically just like a bunch of people talking in a cave for 32 pages. There's like no action going on. It was kind of weird. I don't know much about Kaliman, but it would have been cool if they were featured on the interior stories as well. But $300 for each of those, that's definitely solid sales for those. Another one that they were asking kind of high price but took a much lower offer, X-Men 101, First Appearance of Phoenix, the Novedades. A couple more Novedades, $100 for the pair of 121, 122 Spider-Man. This was a 9.6, the wedding issue, the La Mole foil. Pretty cool, book. They seemed like the market got kind of flooded for them, and then now they just don't show up at all. So, this one sold for $300. So it's a pretty solid price, and the buy-in on these pretty much for Mexico was, right around $75. But they're for the most part in decent condition. Mine came back in 9.4 for whatever reason. So $2.99, probably not a bad buy if these are kind of as not prevalent as we think they might be. This was one of the non-canons. This is the Vampyrella cover, sold for $2,000. Definitely a high sale there. This, $2,000 used to be the buy-in, or, kind of used to be the buy-in for the wedding issue cover, or even less than that, really. So, this is a pretty high price for this book. Someone must have been waiting for this to pop up or really wanted it, but $2,000, so, these non-canon, some of the non-canon stuff is still going up pretty quickly in price, while some of the other ones are kind of floundering around. Obviously the ones with the hot girls on the cover are definitely doing the best. So here we have the first of like the ultimate steals. This is probably like one of the craziest purchases on eBay in as long as I've been doing Ford comics. So this was a wedding issue, Hombre Rana 128. Not listed very well, but in the description it said it was a reprint of Spider-Man. So majority of people that probably saw this would just thought, oh, this is like the either a German reprint or a Mexican La Mole reprint, not really realizing that whatever reason this guy, it's an American seller, used the word reprint when it wasn't. This is the original comic from Mexico, and the last one sold at Heritage. It was like about a 230 for $15,000, and this guy sold it best offer. I think he sold it was like $200 is what the offer was. So he sold this $15,000 plus comic, probably if that was a 2.0 and this one came back from CGC already at a 6.0 or 6.5, I think, that's just, this guy just left so much money on the table. He just didn't, obviously had no idea what he had, had no clue this was a collectible book. To him, it was probably just some weird old Spanish comic he had laying around. But yeah, so this one, Josh, International Comics was the one that bought this one. So that was, that's a hell of a payday. That he sells foreign comics for, that's like his career. That's all he does for work. So that was a huge payday for him, because that'll definitely fund his business for a while. Once if he decides to sell it. For me, I wouldn't. If I was him, I wouldn't sell it. And a 6.5, I think this book, you just hang on to it, and it's just going to keep going up in value. There's so many guys that are into it, and even on a down market, the last one on Heritage sold for insane record price. So I think it would definitely be a smart hold, but I get the fact that he's selling as a business, so he's got to constantly be flipping through books. But crazy buy, crazy lucky eBay score, but somehow, and I'll show you later on in the market report, there's been some just insane deals going around. This is Spider-Man 101, sold for $101. Not really like a key book to me, but just a pretty cover. And this is Spider-Man 100. I don't know why they listed it as 101. So that might have had something to do with it. And I even checked, and it didn't have 101 with it. So this was I don't know. I guess they used the Italian numbering on it. I think that says 101. Yeah, so this is Spider-Man 100, but 101 in Italian numbering. This is kind of a new homage that was done in Italy. It's like an Italian exclusive by John Romita Jr., doing his version of AF-15's cover. And I guess it's embossed. I don't know. The art just wasn't really doing it for me. I saw, some of these you could find on Italian eBay, for like $20, but then they're quickly kind of going up in value. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the artwork. So, it is what it is. And it's a cool book. Cool that it's embossed cover and an Italian exclusive, but wasn't really doing it for me. This is a Daredevil 1, pretty nice looking copy, sold for $300. So, probably not a bad buy if it does grade out at a 6.0 or even maybe a little bit more. $300, for that book is not too bad. You could probably still find it on eBay Italy for $100 to $200, but then you got to deal with the shipping, and this one's coming from Italy as well. But typically, if a foreign seller is selling on American eBay, they pretty much realize that they have to kind of ship by American standards. So hopefully this one's not getting shipped in a floppy manila envelope. This is a pretty horrible copy of Marvel Spotlight 5, sold for $60. That one was in real rough shape, and also with $25 shipping cost added on. Fantastic 452, looks like a pretty nice cover. And this actually was like a lot of books. There was a Thor 165 and a Spawn book, very kind of just random mix of comics, but this... The Fantastic Four was in pretty nice shape, so those three books sold for $330. This was a 9.6 of the German reprint, CGC, 9.6 copy, sold for $275. Here's the Hulk one. So I think it was the last market report, maybe the one before it, when I was showing that some of those on German eBay, some of the copies of Hulk 1 and what else was it? Spider-Man 1 and a couple other ones, Doctor Strange 169. They're all kind of selling for real high prices. And then here we have this one that sold on American eBay for a fraction of that, $149. Granted, this one wasn't in as high grade condition, but still, I would have thought, there's going to come a time where, these people that are selling to strictly like kind of catering to selling to Americans, they're gonna have to raise their prices because they're not going to be able to find these books in Germany, at these good costs anymore. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. Like this just seems kind of cheap to me. After those sales they actually had in the German market on German eBay. This is a $95 for Journey into Mystery 85, first appearance of Loki. And the reason I put on this book on is because to kind of highlight how in that Heritage foreign comic auction, that was kind of like the huge surprise that, that Journey into Mystery 85 from Brazil sold for what, 4,000 something dollars. So it was kind of like, it left me scratching my head like, why this makes no sense. Why would this book sell for more than the ASM one? And some people were saying, oh, because it's older, or Loki's a popular character. But come to find out that sale on Heritage was a mistake. Somebody reached out to me on Instagram or actually on YouTube, and said that they put the bid in and it was incorrect, and so that book just kind of got bid up to some crazy price, and then it was his bid won, but it was an unintentional bid. So the book, I guess, is gonna get relisted at some point. So it's kind of a bummer to know that kind of the crazy high sale of the foreign auction never actually happened. Like that was a mistake, and the book never sold. So here we go. Journey into Mystery 85 sold for $95. So that's quite a bit less than that Brazilian copy sold for. So I'm wondering what that Brazilian copy would have actually sold for had it not been a mistake. I wonder if someone typed 4,000 but meant to type 400. I don't know. I'm not really sure how how it got so messed up, but it'll be interesting to see if it resells. So another one, Doctor Strange 169, sold for $55. This one's kind of lower grade, lots of spine roll going on there, but still, this is cheaper than they're selling for on German eBay in Germany now. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. $76. It's a pretty strong price for this one. Avengers 8 for Appearance of Kang. These were pretty prevalent. You used to be able to just buy, find a seller that had like 5 of these and just buy them all at once. I used to sell them for $30 a piece. Now, they're commanding a little bit more money, so that's good. And especially with Kang gonna be kind of the big bad guy in the Marvel movies coming up, it'll be, probably not a bad investment. So this was a super low sale, 7.0 Avengers 1 from Australia, slabbed, so that took a year to get that slab, probably, $405. These were selling for, around $1,000 not that long ago for like low grade copies. So the fact that this 7.0 sold for $400 was just kind of crazy to me. I wish I would have, not had a copy already. I think I have one. I think it's a 6.0, or it might be a 7.0 as well. And luckily I only have $100 into it, but definitely would have thought a 7.0 would have sold for way more than this. So this is just another warning, not to sell your comics at auction right now. And it's just not a good idea. You're gonna lose money. Your best bet is to list at a high price and just put best offers accepted and see what happens. But yeah, this seller, who knows, probably lost money if they bought this comic, during the kind of the rise of the Mutants, which was like a year ago, where they went from $100 to like $1,000 books. And this guy hopefully didn't lose money on this, but you never know, because that was a nice looking book. So here's a perfect example. Here's a raw copy sold for the same amount, $463 actually, and sold for more. And the chances are this isn't going to grade out to a 7.0, and maybe it looks like a pretty nice copy. But this is the sure thing, and you're not going to have to wait a year to get this one graded. So kind of weird. And this one is shipping from America, it looks like. So kind of a weird thing. The Mutants definitely kind of down in value, but no matter what, still some of my favorite books. I'm glad I didn't pay the crazy prices for them, but we'll see what happens with them. I don't really foresee them going, I think they're only going to go back up, because they're cool books, not that easy to find, and they just have the great colors, great covers on them. So this is the Amazing Fantasy 15 from Mexico, the Novedades version, which was printed, I believe, in 1980s, I believe. I'm not exactly sure. Went for $114, which is pretty cheap because I've seen some of these sell pretty high over the years. Some other novedades that sold: Dr. Octopus, Sandman, first appearance of Lizard, and first appearance of Electro. And these are all pretty strong sales, I feel like, for these novedades books from the 80s. Great covers. I like how they recolored them all. Just fun books. Another one, first appearance of Craven, $48. This one's one of my favorite ones, just because they went with the blue background instead of the red, and just gives it like a totally different look. But it's Spider-Man 50, and then Spider-Man 101 novedades. And all these novedades actually look to be in pretty decent shape. So, some of these were pretty good buys. Some went a little higher than I expected, but overall not bad. And $37 and $46 for the 101 or 121 and 122. And this one went cheap. I was kind of surprised by this. 194, first appearance of Black Cat, sold for $30. That one I would have thought would have gone for more. This was a Heartthrobs 30. I don't really know anything about that book, but I just know it was a Matt Baker cover from 1954 from Mexico. So kind of a cool book. I think it sold. It was like had an offer, like for people that were watching it. The seller put out offers, and I think it was like $130 was the actual selling price, and that one actually went to Josh at International Comics as well. So that was probably a good buy for a Matt Baker cover. Green Lantern 1 from what is this, Mexico. This one, it says it was printed in 1954, but this cover was printed several times in Mexico, and I'm pretty sure this was the one that was printed in the 70s. So I'm not exactly sure if that's accurate, and I don't think Novaro was even printing Green Lantern in 1954, so I don't think that year of print is correct, so who knows, that could probably cause some issues for the seller. But $300 for that book, that's a strong sale. These pop up every once in a while on the Spain marketplace, and you can find them for $50-$60 normally. Doctor Strange #1 from Mexico, Mac Comics, sold for $125. For whatever reason, this book, I've seen like 3 of these pop up in the last month on eBay. It's a pretty uncommon book, so to see so many copies popping up is kind of weird. This is a Greek Fantastic Four #2, sold for $20, pulled from a bind, it appears, but still, not easy to find books from Greece. Black Panther 1 sold for $69. Kind of a great Kirby cover. Mexican Fantastic Four sold for $110. Looks to be in pretty high grade. So here is the Vampyrilla cover, but this is the German reprint. Sold for $99. The non-canon Spider-Man. And here is the German Green Lantern one. This one sold for $200. This one I know you can find pretty cheap on German eBay. I think there was one for sale for like $20-$30 just last month. I almost pulled the trigger on it, but I was like, I'm not a fan of Green Lantern, and I'm definitely not a fan of this weird cover, so I passed on it. Incredible Hulk 1, signed by Stan Lee. This is the German reprint from, I think, the 2001 time, around there, maybe late 1999, early 2000s. Sold for $456. So it's pretty, solid sale for that 9.6. But Stanley's signature, so that's definitely going to add a lot of value to it. This was kind of a crazy sale to me. This is Spider-Man 4, the Silk Ramos cover. Sold for $300, but this doesn't contain the interior story, and this was just printed in just last year, 2021. So I didn't read the description. Hopefully, the guy that sold this one, he made sure to disclose all the information, which hopefully, I would hope you would, and he probably did, because that's a real high price for that. I think I had a few of these, and I sold them for $30-$40. So $300, definitely a solid sale. Not sure what happened on this one. I'm assuming it had a best offer, maybe, or did someone sell this book for 1 cent? I'm not sure. I didn't really look into it, but I'm assuming there was a best offer accepted, maybe, because 1 cent doesn't seem feasible for a 8.5 CGC. Even though it's just kind of a German translation of a number 1. It still should have sold for more than that, which I'm pretty sure it did. I just didn't look into it. Another Fantastic 452 from Italy, sold for $129. 250. Fantastic 448 for Spearance of Galactus. Pretty decent sale there. 200 for this Tech 359 from Italy. This one kind of looks low grade. Looks like it has some water damage maybe to it with the wrinkling on the cover. So that kind of seems like kind of a high price maybe. But these don't come up on Italian eBay very often anymore, and they're definitely not easy to find. So who knows? Maybe someone's just been looking for one for a while and just decided to go with the first one they saw. This seemed like a crazy sale. Superman, Batman, Delato French comic, but it looks like it's signed by Delato 9/8. Sold for $742. Superior Spider-Man 17, the French edition, sold for $40. Another French Canadian, sold for $30, which seems like a crazy cheap price. I thought, I would have thought this would have sold for over $100, but it's going to sell for whatever the seller listed it at. So he listed it for $30, so it sold probably fairly quickly. Here's another one, sold for about $40. The Spider-Man 121. I actually needed this one. I saw it, and I probably should have bought it, but I didn't, and I'll probably be kicking myself for not buying it. And here's the French Canadian Treasury editions of Star Wars. I had the opportunity to buy number 1. And the guy was set on getting over $100 for his, and it was like pretty trashed. So here we have two pretty nice looking copies. It looks like sold for $60. So it seems like a pretty good price. There's a guy that's just been selling a ton of good books from Canada. It must be clearing out his collection or something. I'm not sure. So I think this is the one we talked about, pulled from a bind for $130, or maybe it's another one that's pulled from a bind. This one, seems like a kind of a high sale price, $99. This is a kind of like a digest sized book from 2005, Hulk 181, from Spain. So $99, and you could find these still on Total Collection or maybe Spanish eBay. And for, I'd say, closer to like $20, maybe $30 shipped. So this is definitely one you want to buy, from the native market, not on eBay. Signed by Rob Liefeld, New Mutants 98 from Spain, 9.2 slabbed, and these were printed in 2019. This seemed like not too terrible of a deal. Well, maybe it is a bad deal because it looks like the same seller, but he had two. He had the Vertice Mundi version, Star Wars one, and then the Bruguera version. So there's two different versions in Spain. One is a Lopez SP like repainted cover, and then the other one is basically just the original cover. Both came out about the same time, I believe. I believe the Bruguera is kind of the rarer one to find. Seems harder to find. Seems hard to find in good condition because they only had one staple. But these sold for $50 each, which is cheaper than I've seen them sell for in the past. But then the shipping is $30, and then this guy says no combined shipping. So if some same person bought, both of these books, they paid $50 per comic and then $60 in shipping. So really, whatever deal they were getting pretty much got negated by the high shipping cost. But still, cool books, fun Star Wars books, and not the hardest to find, but definitely have gotten not as easy to find in the last few years. Days of Future Past from Spain. So these are the second editions. These sold for really high prices, $74. So you got to look on these. It says Segunda Edición, has the exact same cover as the first edition, but these are like normal comic size, whereas all the first editions are like a little bit maybe bigger than Golden Age size. So you definitely want to buy the first edition, especially if you're going to be paying a little bit more for them. Because those are the originals. These were printed in, I think, like the early 90s, 93, 94, whereas the first editions were printed in the early mid 80s. So it's a 10-year difference, so you definitely want to buy the earlier copies if you can, or get them both. So this kind of seemed like a steal. This is a Hulk 181 from Spain. Looked really nice condition for, I think I checked, it was $300 is what they paid. And these show up on the Spanish market for $300 to $400, in terrible condition. So to have this one that's in pretty high grade condition sell for $300, it seemed like whoever got it got a pretty good deal on it. This is the Dolman 16 Adam Hughes Death cover. Sold for $350, which I think is about the highest I've seen it sell for raw at this point, especially selling from Spain. So yeah, it's a beautiful cover. At these prices, I'm getting curious and possibly selling mine down the road. We'll see. And this one looked like it was reserved for someone named Spike got this book. Spider-Man 129. This one looked like a pretty nice copy. Sold for $125. It's about the price you would pay on the Spanish market, but this one looks to be in pretty nice condition, so not a bad buy for somebody. This is the Batman Adventures 12. It says sealed. I don't know if that was sealed from the publisher or just sealed at some point at a bookstore. But this is the kind of the thicker, collected edition, and it actually says on the cover it contains issue 12, but it doesn't. It contains issue 13 through 16. So kind of an error, I guess, because it does say it has issue 12 there on the cover. But kind of a cool book. These don't come up very often for sale, so just kind of a fun curiosity to add to the set. All right, so then we've got, I think John Z sold this one, pretty trashed. Marvel Spotlight 5, Danish edition. This was, the kind of infamous flip book with Werewolf by Night 1 and Marvel Spotlight 5 on the back cover. But $75 for this copy, pretty good sale. Someone's been just waiting for just a cheap copy to buy and have, and this was the one. I know there's a couple, I think, slab copies. I think Josh is selling for, I think anywhere from, I can't remember what they were priced at, but closer to $1,000. So somebody just wanted a cheap buy-in on these. Indian Comics kind of shows you how hard some of these things are to find, because these totally trashed copies of AF-15 and Spider-Man 101 sold for $100. And you can't really see the AF-15, but it looks exactly like that 101. And this is the splash page of 101 redrawn by some Indian artist. I'm sorry, 121, not 101. I keep saying that for some reason. Yeah, so this is like the Death of Gwen Stacy, but they use the splash page as kind of as their cover for some reason. But yeah, the AF-15 was in terrible condition as well, and they sold for $100. So this is another one. So, we talked about the Mexican Wedding issue that sold for crazy cheap on American eBay. Way cheaper than you'd be able to find it in Mexico. Someone just didn't know what they had. Well, here's a guy that sold the Cuentos de Brujas, the first appearance of Thor, for, I believe, $500 was the best offer. Crazy price. One of these, like I think I put in my market report, sold on my comic shop. It was a 2.0, sold, I think it was $800, somewhere around there. And that was crazy cheap. So to get one, even if this grades out like 3 or 4, it's still, there's so much money left on the table. That seller just doesn't know what he has, or does know what he has and just doesn't care, because he's selling books way cheaper than they probably should be going for. And it's kind of luck of the draw. I've messaged this guy a few times, and he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to list this. And then, he'll tell you he's listing some like comic you don't care about at all. And then all of a sudden he busts out with, a grail that everybody wants and nobody can find. And it's just all of a sudden it's on eBay, and then like in a split second it's gone. So this one went to Josh, International Comics, as well. So that was another score for him. That I'm sure will be headed to the CGC and probably sold at some point. But that was, great buy. This was the ultimate eBay score. This was the first book that this guy put up. This was the Spider-Man 1 from 1963, the La Prensa. And John Z won this one, and I believe he paid $600 for it. So basically this was, pretty much, I don't know, I'd say a tie between the wedding issue that Josh got for $200 and then this Spider-Man 1 that John got for $600. Between those two, those are probably the scores of this, I'd say, the decades. And somehow they both happened within the last 2 months. So definitely, stay on the hunt, because these books are popping out of the woodworks, I guess, now that people are maybe needing money and just deciding to sell off kind of their weird, rare comics that they don't even know that people want. But yeah, this right here, I would say should be, at least probably a $5,000 to $10,000 comic, and John got it for $500. Same with this one. That's probably, worth at least a couple $1,000, and Josh got it for $500. So yeah, the deals are out there. This guy has, I messaged him, I talked to him, and he says he's got quite a few comics he's going to be listing, but doesn't really communicate very well. So it's just kind of, we'll just have to kind of see what he posts. I gave him a wish list of all the comics I want, and he just said, okay, that's it, nothing else. So he didn't seem too willing to kind of like wheel and deal with me. He just wants to list his books on eBay and see what happens. So yeah, I think this Spider-Man 1, there's probably less than 10 known copies, probably less than that in America. So this one just out of nowhere popped up on eBay, and definitely a really good score for John. Well, I'm jealous. I wish I would have gotten this one. I've already got a wedding issue. I wouldn't mind upgrading mine, but I can survive not finding that one. I can survive not finding this, but the Spider-Man one, that's just a bummer. I wish that would have been me. And I think this is the final one. Same seller that sold these last two books. He sold this one, I think, for $300. I almost contemplated buying this strictly to build a relationship with that seller, to kind of like be like, hey, like, I bought this for $300, but please let me know what else you're going to be listing soon, or what else you have, just to kind of like grease the wheels with them a little bit. But then I just decided I don't really want to spend $300 on a Dr. Octopus book. And I'd rather we just see luck of the draw. We'll just see what happens. So this one sold for $300. Still a rare book, probably worth much more than $300. But this guy's just selling off his collection. Doesn't seem too concerned with getting the max price. But these are, at least this one was in pretty low grade. This one had pretty bad spine splits on pretty much the whole way up the cover. I don't think the staples were attached anymore. John got this one. I think he said the bottom staple was detached and it has some spine splits on it. And then I don't know about Josh. I think he said this one would probably grade out to like a 3 or 4. So killer deals. Last 2 months, pretty much some of the best deals that have ever gone down in foreign comics have happened. So definitely keep on the hunt, and hopefully you can pull off one of these finds, because they happen every once in a while. Everyone gets lucky. Every dog has his day. Wasn't me this time. Wish it was, but I'm not going to complain. I got a pretty big grail recently in the mail for a pretty good trade, so I'm not gonna complain. But all right, I think that is it for my market report. So you guys have a good rest of the month, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.